Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Just a moment before we get started. For those of you that are here early, this is actually a mural, and it was actually a pretty interesting mural that we saw in the Caribbean. This was actually, the hair was all old records. So it was a mixture of painting and physical art as far as that's concerned. So I thought, an interesting kickoff for today's office hours. So yeah, for at least for a while now, for those that are here early, I'll go ahead and keep changing my background art every week, but I think it's actually good, not just for having local Sunnyvale artists being showing their artwork, but also kind of showing some of the international art that I've seen from around the world. So thank you for allowing me to share, some of my travels around the world that have actually been very good. Let me get ready and we'll get started for those that are here. Hopefully we won't have any technical difficulties this week. Definitely, I'd heard from other people in the neighborhood that had a certain number of issues last Friday. And so we were caught with those issues. There's definitely some sort of throttling going on. I don't think it was just my own network. I think it was, as far as our neighborhood was concerned, a bigger issue. But looks like this week the network is in good shape. So we'll get started in just a second. Thanks for everyone who's joined me today. Good morning. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thank you for joining me this week, as you have for many, many weeks now. This is the 101st installment of my weekly office hour address. So sorry to those of you that joined last week and had a certain number of technical difficulties. I know it is the way of the world now, having to deal with an unknown network capability at any given time of the day, but hopefully things will be a lot better today. Keeping our fingers crossed as far as that's concerned. I hope everyone's staying healthy and enjoying our good weather. We've now reached over 700 days, so 704 days since the March 16th, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. It's almost been 2 years now when I converted my weekly coffee shop office hours into these virtual office live stream addresses. And, I haven't missed a week since, but I usually follow these up now with in-person meetings on Murphy Avenue for those of you that want to come down and visit me at Bean Scene. You can email me, reserve 15 minutes or 30 minutes if you want, or you can just drop in if you have a quick word. People really still say they enjoy hearing from their mayor each week, and it's good for me too. I look back at what's happened over the last few weeks. I give you some updates in the news, and answer some of your questions that are common for so many people, and just give you some general words of encouragement. So thanks for allowing me to continue to represent you and work for Sunnyvale during ever-changing times. Let's go ahead and get started and talk about what's happened at the federal, state, county, and city level over the last 2 weeks. Last Monday, California state officials announced that they will be lifting the universal indoor masking requirement on February 16th. However, of course, state officials said that they will continue that indoor mask requirements after February 16th for K through 12 schools, childcare facilities, public transit, healthcare facilities, shelters, jails, long-term care facilities. And of course, this would be the first step away from the state's exit strategy for the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a major shift for our state, as it's been probably one of the most strictest and longest running restrictions across the U.S. But they would, and they said that last week that they would unveil more details this week, and there was a press conference Monday and yesterday, which we'll get to in just a little bit. Last Tuesday, council had a meeting to appoint our empty seat on council, and so this was a relatively long meeting with lots of discussions from our council members, especially after we were a little deadlocked at a 3-3 vote. And I just want to say thank Councilmember Hendricks for his leadership in the negotiations. We finally chose previous mayor Tony Spitaleri. He served on council from 2005 to 2014. And Tony will end up serving the rest of Councilmember Fong's term, and that, of course, ended June, and so that will be through the beginning of next year. So that June 3rd, 2023 spot, and so I want to just thank Tony for offering to rejoin our team and give back to our city. And then last Wednesday, the county, Santa Clara County Health basically said that it would not be lifting indoor masking requirements when the state lifted its requirements on the 16th. And they'll continue to follow the decisions based upon the data, so what, from a metric standpoint, what vaccinations, what hospitalizations, what COVID-19 case rates look like. And LA County did a similar sort of thing. They announced that they would not be following the state requirements. They would continue masking at least for a while longer until the end of the month. The county anticipates that it will actually be removing those indoor mask requirements in just a few weeks as our case counts continue to decline. But that'll be announced probably the last week of February. So we'll see where that goes. Last Wednesday, Governor Newsom signed the legislation to extend COVID-19 supplemental paid leave, paid sick leave for workers. And that was, the legislature passed that bill requiring workers to receive at least 2 weeks of paid time off if they get sick from COVID-19 or they have to take care of someone in their house. So take care of a loved one because of COVID-19, and that bill applies to companies with 26 or more employees. So that was pretty much the same concept that was in place last year that then expired in September. So I was happy to see that they extended that since people are still being hit by COVID-19. And then last Thursday, Santa Clara County Supervisor Joe Simidian had a press conference to announce the proposal to require Santa Clara County officials to issue a report on the possible options of purchasing Lehigh Quarry. And that also includes, either negotiating with the owners or actually seizing that land through eminent domain. And, Lehigh has been an ongoing issue in the valley for a while now. It's in the hills west of Cupertino and has sparked pollution, mainly over the pollution, traffic, and some noise over the last few years. In the whole land is about 3,500 acres around that quarry. So this is 3 times the size of San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, but the current permit requires that basically the main mine be reclaimed or restored by 2032. But in 2019, of course, the company asked for an extension seeking to expand the quarry, and the county didn't grant that. But of course, last February, the company is now sued, and that's in the courts right now. But because from a long time from the standpoint that we will be closing that quarry down sometime in the next 10 years is the goal. I think it was a great idea from Supervisor Simidian to actually look at, can we expedite that? Can we go ahead and purchase it sooner? And I think making that open space and would have great benefits for wildlife as well as people being able to access that area. I was one of several mayors who joined together for an independent press release in favor of that proposal, and ultimately when that went to the county supervisors Tuesday of this week, that was one of the things that they did go ahead and say, let's get that report back to the supervisors to see whether or not that is an option. And then last weekend, of course, the Friends of the Sunnyvale Library had their book sale, and I think it was a big success. I heard that they actually ran out of books in certain areas by Sunday afternoon, so that was actually very good. And then, of course, Sunday was Super Bowl Sunday. It was a close game and interesting, and congratulations to all the Rams fans, of course. And it was good. I think downtown was very active from what I saw, and for those of you that watched it for the commercials, there were actually a few good commercials there too. So hope everybody enjoyed their day. And then, of course, Monday was Valentine's Day, so hope you enjoyed that day with someone you loved. Thank you for, and it was also kind of the end of the Sunnyvale Heart Scavenger Hunt that's been going on for the last few weeks. I want to thank all the people who hosted and ran that program. I do think that event was a lot of fun. I got a lot of good press from that standpoint, and I found almost 2/3 of the hearts around the city during my morning runs with our dog Buddy. He got some good press too. He was actually on the news and in the paper. But it was good. It was fun to get out and exercise, and I think a lot of people enjoyed that search for love in Sunnyvale. But hopefully we will do that again. And I hear that we might actually have something coming up for St. Patrick's Day. So keep your eyes posted. And then on Monday, Dr. Galley, from the state standpoint, had a press conference and said that the state will continue to require masks in schools. It was just kind of reemphasizing what had somewhat been a question the week before. So kindergarten through grade 12, as well as childcare settings, all basically will be requiring masks. But the big thing is that Dr. Galley said that they will continue to reassess that requirement and announce a new date. So on the February 28th, they will be announcing what the date is to remove the mask mandate within childcare settings in schools. So and it all depends upon case rates and hospitalizations and vaccine rates, but more information to come later this month. So at the end of the month, we'll at least define what that new date might be. I don't think it'll be the 28th. I think it'll be sometime in March, but we'll see how quickly they can move forward with that. And then on Tuesday of this week, council swore in its new council member. So it's a ceremonial swearing in for Councilmember Spitaleri. So that went smoothly. It was good to see his daughter swear him in. And then we also authorized, from a council standpoint, we authorized the city manager to execute the sublease with Planetary Ventures for the 35 acres right next to the Moffett Landing Field where the Sunnyvale Golf Course is. So we extended that lease for another 8 years. So we do that every 8 to 10 years. I think it's a great deal from our standpoint. It adds to our open space. And to a large degree, I think it's it's providing a needed, service to our residents. There are a lot of people that are enjoying golf, and I think that because it's also on the landing runway, or it's right at the runway. There's not much that could actually be put there, for especially, people talked about housing or hotels or something of that nature. You actually have a lot of limitations on what can go right at the runway, especially when planes are landing. And then on Wednesday, California's mask mandate officially expired for all the counties in the Bay Area, of course, except for Santa Clara County. And so they dropped the indoor masking requirements for vaccinated people. And, also people vaccinated or not will still need to wear face coverings in certain settings. And we talked about those before. That's transit. So if you're on airplanes, ferries, trains, buses, taxis, Ubers, hail rides and such, you still need to wear your mask. And then of course, we talked about previously, all the school settings require you to wear masks, and then all the emergency shelters, homeless shelters, healthcare settings still will be required masks as far as that's concerned. So that will continue to be reevaluated as we move forward. But for now, some counties, and hopefully ours soon, will get rid of that mask requirement. And I think, and then of course yesterday, council had our second all-day meeting of the year, and so our first meeting was our strategic section back in January, and our second all-day meeting is our studies, issues, and budget proposals workshop. And so we went through over 30 different issues yesterday, either deferring them or dropping them or ranking them. And so, Sunnyvale has a fairly unique process of new ideas that people might have. They can, whether or not that's through residents, through council, or our boards and commissions, propose new study issues. They're written up by city staff, and then council decides whether or not that they should undertake them. And so we either defer them to a future year, we drop them if they're already being handled, or we don't think it's appropriate in the short term for council to look at, or we end up ranking them. And so our ranking, ultimately says, okay, here's what our priorities are for different departments. And that also, each one brings a different level of responsibility within a specific department, as well as additional funding conceivably for community outreach or contractors or other consultants that we might have to bring in to finish that view. But, I think we end up ranking a good number every year, and we have some big ones that are finally going to be finishing in this year. So I think we ultimately might have a little more capacity next year, but it's been an ongoing effort to bring up new ideas. And from our standpoint, some of the top ranked issues, of course, one of the hottest ones, of course, is studying the closure of the 100 block of South Murphy Avenue. And so ultimately, staff, it was in big favor as far as that's concerned with this issue, because ultimately council extended the closure of Murphy Avenue until the end of September, and staff thinks that they can finish the study by that time. And that the study isn't just closing it, but looking at whether or not there needs to be ADA access changes, whether or not there needs to be emergency vehicle access changes, what those effects are on other things, as I've mentioned before, of like state funding, because we ended up closing a section of the road, we end up losing a little bit of state funding. There's a lot of different things that go into that ultimately go into that. How often the streets are cleaned and sidewalks are cleaned and all that, whether or not there needs to be a new effort for that main street. And so that was one of our toply ranked issues. A few of the others were research possible causes and potential mitigation measures for nuisance bird populations, which we've heard a lot about, whether or not that's the crows in downtown, or conceivably also the geese at the community center. So, I've heard complaints on both of those issues through the years. And then, of course, completing a comprehensive update for the feasibility of recycled water extension. We have our wastewater treatment plant that we're currently, doing full renovation on and expanding capacity over about 20 years. That being said, we have additional capacity of recycled water, and figuring out where we can use it in the city, and making sure that is an opportunity from a city standpoint to utilize recycled water as opposed to water that we're purchasing through either Valley Water or the SFPUC. And then finally, another top listed issue was assessment of the needs for additional outdoor sports programs and facilities. Sports continually change, and what the requirements are from a city standpoint. Ultimately, whether or not it's pickleball or frisbee golf, or there's a lot of opportunity in a lot of different ways for residents, whether or not that's cricket, and we have a whole study issue going forward on cricket still at Baylands Park. But it's reevaluating those needs in our community as our community changes, as interests in new sports come up. And so I think that's a positive thing that our city does. So, those are just a few of the study issues. It's kind of the first step to a large degree in that we rank them. And so we figure out, here's the order, here's the priorities that council gives. And then based upon staffing availability and as well as funding, there's those issues that go above or below the line for the different departments. And that kind of varies depending upon what the capacity is for each department and what's currently on their plate, and making sure that what they already are working on continues to move forward. But then when we get to our budget workshop in March, what council ultimately does at that point is figuring out whether or not we want to put additional funding to get things done, whether or not that is consultant dollars that then staff would manage. So it varies from item to item as far as that's concerned. And then yesterday, of course, Governor Newsom unveiled the state's plan for kind of the next phase in the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's kind of specifically moving to more of an endemic vision of learning to live with the coronavirus. And so kind of moving away from the crisis mentality that we've had for about 2 years now. So the governor put together a plan, the governor and staff put together a plan which was coined as SMARTER. Basically, it's a little more adaptable, and it's understanding that we need to we need to respond to kind of the ever-changing requirements in case a new variant shows up sometime later after we reduce mask mandate. But the SMARTER concept is basically based upon the 7 priorities moving forward. So it's kind of an acronym: shots, masks, awareness, readiness, testing, education, and RX. And so it's all those things together. It's making sure that people are vaccinated, that we wear masks when we need to, but it's kind of doing an awareness and readiness depending upon the capacity of our hospitals, figuring out whether or not case rates are going, doing appropriate testing for case rates, just education of making sure that the people understand the issues and what's available to them, and making all testing and vaccinations available as easy as possible. So there'll be more information about that in the coming weeks, but that was a press release that press conference that the governor had yesterday. I watched a little bit of it. I had a very busy day with our all-day meeting, but it was good to actually look at it from that standpoint and get at least a quick overview of what the state requirements will be going forward. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly COVID numbers. COVID numbers continue to trend downward. So that's positive from that standpoint. From a national standpoint, we've now had 77.1 million cases. That increased by 9 million cases, down from, sorry, that increased by 0.9 million cases. That's down from 1.5 on last week and 3.2 the week before. We've had 232 million people vaccinated with at least one dose. And that's about 81% of those 5 years and old. And 87% of adults have at least one dose, and 74% of adults are fully vaccinated. So, that's pretty positive. People still are passing away with COVID. We're now had another 15,000 in the last week, so we're up to 926,000. And then from California, we've had 8.2 million positive cases. Now we've dropped to about 18,000 a day in the last week. That's down from 32,000 a day a week ago and 64,000 a day 2 weeks ago. We're still not back to the 3,000 or 4,000 a day that we were a while ago, but we'll get back there at some point. Our case positivity rate has dropped to 8.6%. And then we've had another over 1,500 deaths in the last week with COVID. So we now passed 82,000 fatalities of people with COVID in California. But we've had over 70.9 million people vaccinated, or 70.9 million vaccinations administered, another 800,000 in the last week. And then from a county standpoint, things are looking better. Our cumulative case number is now over 301,000, but that's 5,000 in the last week. That's down from 9,000 a week ago. So we're seeing that almost halve on a weekly basis now. And then we've had another 32 deaths in the county. That makes our total up to 2,082 deaths, and 93.7% of those 18 and older are fully vaccinated, and 67% of those that are eligible for the booster have already received it. So we're the best county in the nation from that standpoint, of our size of getting vaccinated. And then, for me, I continue to do a lot of advocating for our city, for our residents, at the county level, talking to county health, talking to our supervisors, of course. So testing was back here yesterday. So for those that were able to get it, definitely, I heard it was a little bit easier this week, but it's always, the county is coming back now here on the first and third Thursday of the month. And they'll be here from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. on the first and third Thursday at the community center. And all you need to do is go to sccfreetest.org, and you can get your appointment. And then if you still need to get your vaccination or get your booster, you can go to sccfreevax.org. And there's lots of places around the county that you can still get your vaccination. Let me do a quick update on some of the upcoming events. Of course, Monday is President's Day. Hopefully you have the day off. City offices will be closed, but you can still do the returns through the automated book drop at the library, but general offices will be closed. And then as far as upcoming council meetings, on Tuesday, we'll have a special order of the day for Black History Month. And then from the main meeting standpoint, it'll be our public hearing to receive comment regarding the draft redistricting maps that our redistricting commission has put together, and it also talk about the proposed sequencing. So ultimately, we'll look for either sending some of those maps back, or conceivably choosing a final map depending upon what council is looking for. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. If you have any questions, just add them into the comments and I'll get back. Hopefully I can get to them this week. I'm going to redo some of the ones from last week since a lot of people dropped off early because of the technical difficulties. Eric asked, any ideas on when the overpass on Fair Oaks by Evelyn will be done? And so it's supposed to be sometime spring. It will, last I heard, it's probably April. So I'll keep updated, and I'll keep you updated on that, and I'll reach back and talk to talk to city staff on whether or not that's still on track, but hopefully it is. And then John asked, what are the next openings in downtown? So it's actually several openings. Actually, one of the openings that happened earlier this week on Wednesday, actually, no, sorry, on Tuesday, was City National Bank open. So I just want to thank City National Bank for already being a part of the community. They actually, so it's a full service bank right on McKinley in the City Line project. But one of the things they've already given back, they supported the Diwali event in the fall. They gave a $10,000 donation to Sunnyvale Community Services. So if you get a chance, go by, introduce yourself. They're right there on McKinley, right near Matilda, so right around that corner. But it was good to have a little ribbon cutting, have a little celebration as far as they're concerned. Happy that they're part of the community. And then, of course, next Tuesday, the Sunnyvale Downtown Association has a grand opening. And so, the Sunnyvale Downtown Association has not had offices previously. And so they actually finally have offices in the second story on Murphy Avenue, but they'll be having an open house on Tuesday afternoon from 1 to 5, and a little ribbon cutting. They're on the second story, right between Bean Scene and Dish Dash, between Dish Dash and the next shop. But there's one of the doorways that goes to the second story. So that'll be happening. Kimberly asks, I'm looking for some answers or guidance on who to ask. The play structure on Orchard Gardens Park is being taken down. Why? Are there any swings to? Are they taking away the swings to? Is it being used somewhere else? What is going on in its place? So the whole JW Christian Greenbelt is something that was created. It's where the SFPUC has its water lines, and ultimately we have an easement to create kind of a green belt through that north part of our city. And the SFPUC did a reevaluation of their land, and one of the things that they said was they needed the city to they required the city to remove certain structures that are sitting above the water lines along that green belt. And it's from a safety standpoint, as well as if they had to immediately go in and do repairs, they couldn't have like play structures sitting above what they were doing. So yes, I'm afraid those structures are removed, and what will be replaced with is just grass above them. So it'll be a little open space. It'll add more to the open space, but those park structures, some of them are retained, those that weren't above the water lines themselves, but there are certain ones that definitely had to go away, and that's not just right at Orchard Gardens, but some of the other ones along that pathway. As the real owner of the land, SFPUC does have that decision to make, and ultimately they are requiring that from a safety standpoint. That's much like PG&E is going through and evaluating the gas lines, repairing gas lines, and they also found that certain trees that were planted above certain gas lines could conceivably, the roots could go into their area, and they've had to remove trees in the area. B asked, please bring a nice bookstore to downtown. You could invite Kepler or Books Inc. So many young educated people live in downtown now. B, we actually have two great bookstores in downtown. Lee's Favorite Books for new and used books, and then Bookosaurus for kids' books. You can always order anything that you can't find there, of course, but I think it's actually good to have a nice independent bookstore downtown. Hopefully you get a chance to visit it. It's amazing how many people don't realize all the different, stores and restaurants that we have in our city. Vivian asked, a couple days ago, I drove from Highway 85 on Winchester Boulevard into downtown Los Gatos. The entire stretch of Winchester has protected bike lanes on both sides of the road. I couldn't get over how similar it was to Mary Avenue, driveways, parking along the sides, all reasons I've been given in the past on why Mary Avenue could not have protected bike lanes. So I haven't been able to visit Winchester Boulevard yet, although I did reach out to the past mayor for Los Gatos, and she pointed me to a document just yesterday on what their plans were and what they actually implemented along Winchester. So I will take a look further about that. There are actually longer vision goals for improving the bike lanes along Sunnyvale, Saratoga, along Matilda, that whole area, along Fremont, as well as Mary. So let me get that information. I'll end up passing it to city staff. As Sunny asked, ever since COVID started, I've been working from home, which means I've started exploring Sunnyvale by foot. What I've realized is that when I walk to downtown across El Camino or Matilda, it's not very pedestrian friendly. Pedestrian crossings are either out of the way or they just take a while to pass. It feels dangerous. Have there been any thoughts of creating pedestrian bridges or overpasses like the Strip in Vegas? They would be beautifully connect all the awesome areas of Sunnyvale, which are currently separated by El Camino and Matilda. And I agree. It's, having pedestrian overpasses would be really nice. We have them over, 101, over 237. But, one of the issues, of course, is cost and also the land that's required, that because they need to be ADA compliant, you actually need a lot more space to deal with the ramp up to that. I'll be honest, it's like, it would be a lot of money. I think what we're trying to do is actually improve the crossing. So we actually are working with Caltrans to make those intersections a little bit safer, and so that whether or not that's removing kind of the pork chops that are unsafe because you have cars turning right that rust through an area that's only pedestrian crossing to get out to what used to be a pork chop island where you wait for the light to change, or it's also changing the lights so that all lights stay on red for a little bit of time, allowing residents to kind of cross and conceivably stopping some right turn on red on those. So we're dealing with a lot of different proposals. We are looking at kind of improving pedestrian safely along that, but actually implementing pedestrian bridges, a big effort. And I think the hardest thing is finding the appropriate land that most people wouldn't have. Hugo asked, what's going to happen to the old Sunnyvale Fries? Any chance the site will be affordable housing? Haven't heard any news yet. Definitely there's been a lot of talk, but Fry's actually moved a lot of their other equipment into that store when they closed down all their other stores and stayed online a bit, but haven't heard or seen anything from that standpoint. And I think that is it for questions, unless people have added a question in the comments. That looks like it. So let's go ahead and, wrap up. Thanks for joining me again this week. COVID continues to be a big, challenge for our community, and, the state, the county, the nation continues to struggle. I just want you to know that no matter what the challenges we face, I'm always proud of our city and our response to COVID. I'm thankful for our wonderful residents who are always helping each other and serving their community in so many ways, giving freely, whether or not that's, and that's the one thing about going around the city and visiting it. You see people giving away, food or other, books, sharing what they have, to make sure it's not just gone to waste or given or available to those in need. So, new issues always keep coming up, but your actions and your attitude really do make a difference. Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. We're in this together. We'll get through this together. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. Goodbye.